Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English-language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Good morning, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Palestine Remembered, and thank you so much for all the messages and notes I'm getting from our wonderful listeners. It's so heartwarming. I keep getting asked how I'm doing, and well, you know, every Palestinian is not doing okay. We're not doing okay. Anybody that tells you they're actually doing okay is saying so just to make you feel a little bit better. But we can do better than we could be doing, if you understand what I mean. Like, there are times when we are all but sitting in a corner, rocking ourselves into some sort of comatose sleep, or a place where we might find some solace in forgetting. For me, it's watching stupid, funny movies, much to the disdain of my darling wife, who's done an amazing job of caring for me, and she keeps getting asked by members of our community, "Are you looking after Nasser? Are you looking after Nasser?" So everyone, Samar is doing an amazing job of looking after me. I, on the other hand, am not doing a very good job of looking after her, but promise to do better, as is my mother, my darling mother, who's a regular listener and number one fan club of Palestine Remembered. Good morning, Mum. She's also doing a wonderful job of looking after me. But looking after ourselves and how we feel is a question that is so complex to answer. I can tell you, on the 6th of October, before this current shitstorm fell upon all of us, I felt less Palestinian, I felt more guilt then than I do today. That's a better way to explain it. I felt more guilt on the 6th of October, living my life, free and enjoying my life, my kids healthy, fridge full, and doing my bit for Palestine. And doing my bit for Palestine, I'd argue there'd be very few people that might compare with the amount of effort and output I do for Gaza, for Palestine, and that's on the 6th of October. And even with all that I do, all the sacrifice, time, effort, resource, etc., I still feel guilty, like I'm not doing enough. And here we are, 46, 47 days later, and there's barely been a waking moment that I haven't been actually working on Palestine and trying to find a way to make Palestinian babies matter to a wider audience, to make Palestine palatable. And strangely, working 100% for Palestine, I have a little bit less guilt, because I know there's actually nothing else I can do. But the pain is insufferably worse. So all of your little messages of hope and thanks and uplifting wishes of and gratitude really make an impact. So all those messages and the people that come up to me in the rally and thank me, and it's a beautiful thing. And surely what we all want is that better world where we can all live together, irrespective of age, sex, ability or otherwise, creed, religion, gender, how anyone might identify. As human beings, you know, we should all be able to live gently on this earth, gently on this earth, and gently together, where each of us has our own trials and tribulations, but we know that we can get a hug, an embrace, a shared humanity from the person that might be next door to us. So thank you everyone for everything, and know very well that Mum and especially Samar are looking after me. 15,000 Palestinians are now dead, 230 in the West Bank, 7,000 missing in Gaza. We've got a 4-day pause. You know, the language of oppression uses these funky words. A 4-day pause. What does a pause mean? It means a pause in the speed of genocide. It's a pause in the death rate. As we know, Gaza used to get 500 trucks a day when things were quote-unquote normal in the prison camp. They're going to get 300 or 400 trucks a day for the next 4 days. Israel's still doing letter drops saying the operation isn't over. This is just a pause. Overnight, as some of the hostages were released, and we're thankful that they get to go back to their families. 2 Palestinians walked north trying to get back to their homes to grab some personal effects and belongings. Snipers killed them because you're not allowed to walk north. The operation hasn't ended. Didn't you see the letter drop? The hypocrisy. You know, the really hurtful thing. And I had a phone call with a lovely guy, and he's an artist. And you know, artists have a way of speaking differently. It's more. It's more human. It's not as intellectual, if you will. They can just actually speak. And we're talking about language. So the hostages have been released. That's great. I mean, again, as a humanist, I want everybody to be in the embrace of their loved ones, irrespective, whether they're Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, whatever. But Palestinian prisoners are getting released. Now, the list of names, the initial tranche of names that have been released by the Israelis of the Palestinian prisoners, there's 300 of them. 270 are children. 30 are women. How are these prisoners? How are they not hostages? 270 children, 30 of the women. 235 don't even have a conviction. Remembering that to be convicted by your military occupier in a military court, devoid of civil law, civil representation, question a language you don't understand, often signing a confession in that same language without your guardian, without an advocate. 235 with no conviction. 22 that did have convictions were for throwing stones. Not sure how these are prisoners and not also hostages. I was on the ABC yesterday, and the host there was really keen to get my feelings on the hostages being released. I said, I'm overwhelmingly happy for them and their families. But I'd really like to know how the world feels about our hostages being released. And how about the 2.3 million hostages in Gaza? And they're hostages, held against their will, in an open-air prison, surrounded, air, land and sea, food cut off. We're about to enter our 8th week. No food, no gas, no electricity. Gazans are drinking agricultural water from wells that are used ordinarily to water crops. That's what it looks like. 26 out of the 35 hospitals in Gaza are out of service. 1.7 million people are displaced. On the Walkleys during the week, they had a moment's silence for the journalists that have been killed. It's a wonderful act of solidarity. 53 journalists have been killed, 46 Palestinians, 4 Israelis, 3 Lebanese, and another 4 are missing. Sadly, we weren't identified or given any sort of acknowledgement that in the gross disparity in numbers, reportage, etc. And it comes back to that dehumanisation. One of the things, I had a coffee with a wonderful supporter of 3CR and a dear, dear friend of 3CR, Jacob. Everyone knows Jacob around here. He does our audio on Sunday, so tomorrow, don't forget, 12 o'clock, State Library, come out and join us. In our thousands and our millions, come along. We were talking about, the world and trying to make everybody understand that it was a better place. And he told me a story about he and some friends, and they really had a challenge with the fact that, with his politics. They were all capitalists. And they were at a pub and, they had roast of the day, and everybody had like this little side dish of peas. So he grabbed everybody's peas and he said, right, you get 5 peas, you get 4 peas, you get 2 peas, and you get no peas, and I've got all these peas. And they went, that's not fair. And he said, yeah, now just imagine that's money or resources. Now, if there's enough peas here for everybody. And if we just spread them out for everybody gets enough peas. And it took the pea analogy for his, capitalist mates to go, oh, maybe there are enough peas for everyone. And maybe there are enough resources for us all that could mean that every child gets the right education, every child gets the right health care, every child gets the right shelter, every child has a fridge that's got food in it, and every child is human and equal in the eyes of everyone. That would be a wonderful world, and certainly the world I want to leave my children and grandchildren, and until I leave this earth will be the world that I'll be fighting for. The challenge we've got as Palestinians, and when I was speaking to this artist, he said, I just don't get why no one sees your kids as human. And I said to him, look, I don't get it either, but we've got to look at what this world has manufactured, over 100 years, whether it be in cinema or any sort of entertainment, quote unquote. The Arab is a bearded, swarthy, sweaty, angry dude, and he is of course the bad guy. AK-47, kafir, shouting and screaming, eyes bulging, spit flying out of his mouth. And so we've been associated with that sort of violence. We've been associated with that sort of hate. We've been associated... and then when Arnold Schwarzenegger's gun never ran out of bullets, and he was able on his own single-handedly to kill thousands of these swarming, hairy, sweaty, angry, bearded men, he was the hero. And so in Gulf War I, when a bunker buster, just the cruelest form of technology. I mean, if you think about the technology used to create weapons, the military-industrial complex, if those same people with those brains used those brains, they would have cured cancer. And overwhelmingly they're blokes. So this is not gendered. But they're overwhelmingly evil blokes that invent this shit. 90% of them are bald. They could have cured baldness. Use your brains for good. Cancer, baldness. Stop inventing bombs. Now, this bunker buster bomb in Gulf War I, so it's designed to penetrate the earth and blow up bunkers where people are hidden. And so it's like a 2 or 3 stage bomb. So the first bit of the bomb blows up the building, the second bit of the bomb digs a tunnel, and the third bit of the bomb blows up when it's deep in the ground. And the UN gives out coordinates for all of its facilities so that, quote unquote, in a civilized war, quote unquote, the army, quote unquote, won't target, quote unquote, these civilian targets. Well, there was an accident in Gulf War I, and Gulf War I was the first time that a war was streamed. Not like the streaming that we have today, where we have citizen journalists take videos on WhatsApp and send it around and we can see it instantaneously. But this was the first war that CNN covered via a satellite, so we could see stuff straight away. Previous to that, maybe Vietnam or something, somebody took pictures on a old school camera and wound up the film in a Kodak thing and put the canister in mail, and it might have landed back at the New York Times a month later. So the reportage was never live. Well, this was live, Gulf War I. And George Bush the first was there, and they said, you've dropped this bunker buster on this UN facility, killed 200 kids and how many tens of others. And he said, that's collateral damage. These 200 innocents that were eviscerated and evaporated. and no longer there. They were collateral damage. And in that moment, I remember that press conference. I was in my early 20s, and I went, we don't matter. They don't see us as human. And so Israel can go on this slaughter. They've killed 1%, and it's over 1% now, but 1% of the population of Gaza. And 1% of the population of Australia is almost 300,000 people. The entire Mornington Peninsula. 300,000 people. That's what it feels like when you extrapolate the numbers back to Gaza into Australia. So we're not human. We're not human enough. We're not Ukrainian enough. We're not white enough. The fact that more babies are being killed in the first 3 weeks of this current slaughter than have been killed by Russia in 2 years didn't even make a blip. The fact that more Muslims have been killed now than were in the Bosnian genocide, not even a blip. Nobody seems to care. Our dehumanization is complete. And it's a sickening and sad thing because it breeds hate. And I don't want to live in a world where people have hate. It allows for people to do inexcusable things, which is like what Israel's done to Gaza. You know, what they've done to the Palestinians there. How we can sit in a country that is all but cheerleading, just short of cheerleading. We had a wonderful council, the Inner West Council in New South Wales. The council had a motion to ask the CEO to write to Penny Wong and ask her to demand a ceasefire. Well, the motion didn't get up, voted down by the Labor councillors. The Greens and the Socialists all put it up, but the Labor and Liberal voted it down. The next day, en masse, the entire multicultural department resigned in an act of just beautiful solidarity. They said, how do you expect us to run a multicultural department when everybody that we interact with from the global south is crying for Gaza, but you lot can't even humanise them? There are multitudes of little wonderful wins, whether it's Gina Ortega asking to be let out of her Scream contract in solidarity with her co-star who got sacked for having a pro-Palestinian post on her Facebook. There are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful displays of solidarity all over the world. Stay tuned, and I'll be talking to Jiselle after the break.
Because the Palestinian fight isn't just the Palestinians' fight, it's all our fight, because it's a fight not just about land, it's about a fight for freedom.
Everybody should be standing here today saying, free Palestine.
Solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters on behalf of the Gumbaynja Nation, my people who've never ceded their sovereignty.
We should be recognising Palestine as a state and recognising the rights of Palestinians.
3CR. Stay tuned, stay radical.
Don't forget tomorrow, 12 o'clock, State Library. We've got some wonderful, wonderful speakers speaking, and I'm very excited that Senator Lydia Thorpe is going to lead us out tomorrow. So really, really, really great to see Sister Lydia out tomorrow. We've had, her uncle and brother Gary Foley and so many others, and Uncle Robbie Thorpe, who's a dear friend here of 3CR. But Jiselle's going to join me now, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes just talking about all sorts of stuff, and make sure, as wonderful as our show is at 9:30, you've got to tune in at 9 o'clock and hear Jiselle.
Thank you. No, we're all comrades here at Community Radio 3CR, and we're all fighting for the same cause, the same issues, basically the end of capitalism, because really colonisation is or imperialism is the highest form of capitalism, and colonialism is a part of that.
Absolutely. And I got this most wonderful, so we're talking about support. I got thousands of emails, texts and whatever, and one got lost, and it was from this lovely Indigenous woman, and it was heartbreaking to read. She and perhaps I'll read it next week if I can hold myself, but she talks about her own journey as a stolen child, as a granddaughter of a tribe that only 5 people survived out of the massacre. And she, linked our struggle as Palestinians with her struggle as an Indigenous person here, as we do always, about the need for us to fight imperialism, colonialism, supremacism, hate, and it is, manifests itself as white power. Like anybody that thinks that Zionism isn't white power, or that that isn't, all that power sits in those colonial places, Britain.
Let me say something about that, because I agree that there are a lot of similarities in the struggle for First Nations rights and First Nations justice in Australia and the struggle of Palestinian people. I also think there are a lot of similarities with the Irish people's struggle against colonisation, against the British. Yeah. A lot of my comrades, so good, decent left-wing trade unionists, say that I don't agree with that analysis. It's different in all these ways. And I want to say to that, it is different in all of those ways. Nobody is saying that the struggles are identical. That's not what solidarity is about. The issue is the mechanism of colonisation as a function of land theft in order to exploit natural resources and, as a result, displace the people that are there, and in so doing dehumanise them, which is what you talk about all the time. That is the similarity, that is a point of solidarity, and that is a connection that we need to talk about. Not all the differences. We know that it's different. We know that 250 years ago, colonisation in Australia looks very different to what Israel is doing today, apart from anything. The technology of weaponry is different. So I think it's important to focus on the points of solidarity when we make those comparisons, knowing that they're not identical.
Yeah. Not all struggles are identical. What you can see is that if somebody's getting the shit kicked out of them, be on the side of the guy getting the shit kicked out of them, just in the first instance. And that's, Uncle Gary Foley's great connection to Palestine was in Monash University, 1973, in the Yom Kippur War. He saw 10 blokes kicking the hell's bells out of one bloke. And he and a mate of his, Simon McGuinness, I think, rushed in and went, threw some swings and copped a few punches and rescued this bloke. And they went, what's going on? And he says, well, they're Israeli, I'm Palestinian. And he immediately knew, you don't have to know everything, but if a whole bunch of people are kicking the shit out of one bloke, just go save the one bloke and then work out, hold on a second, why are you doing that? And try and talk stuff down. And, that really simple schoolyard bully analogy should be used in Gaza. There's a really big, powerful person beating up a little person. We should be going, hold on, big person, stop it. And when the big person goes, no, they should be thankful I'm only wearing my sneakers because I've got steel-cap boots at home. They should be thankful that I'm only using the sneakers to kick the shit out of them and not my steel-cap boots. That we, on the outside, should go, mate, have a good hard look at yourself.
Well, whether, being killed by a blunt axe and a sharp axe is like you're still being killed by the axe,
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, look, it's good that we're having a laugh, Jiselle. It's good that we're having a laugh because we need to continue to laugh. And one of the things that Palestinians continue to tell me from Palestine, whether it's in the West Bank or Gaza, refugee camps, etc., is that, we teach life. We must continue wherever we are to enjoy life, to speak about just how wonderful our culture is and how embracing and warm it is. So it's good to laugh and to remember that we are human and we belong and we will continue to belong. Yesterday, Jiselle, you would have seen a whole bunch of journalists signed another letter saying do better on. This is, I think, the second or third such letter, do better in the reportage. The Age editors quickly came out with a statement. Anybody that signed that petition and doesn't take their name down will be banned from reporting on Palestine-Israel. Brilliantly on Twitter. I mean, this is the thing about, digital signatures now. These editors from the SMH, well, it's 9 newspapers now, had a picture of themselves and Shari Markson in the Dead Sea, on one of the Rambam Israel tours, and there was another picture of them at Al-Aqsa, with their Israeli hosts. Should they remove themselves from reporting on anything on Israel? Do they declare that? Paul Sokol, who wrote a particularly egregious piece of an article on me, didn't declare that he'd been on a tour, in his takedown. That said, if you're...
Well, with respect, Marsha Langton was also on an Israeli tour, and she came out and said some horrendously offensive things.
Mm-mm.
I mean, she said that the Gazan people deserved everything they got for electing Hamas in the first place. She didn't declare her allegiances, and that she was also on a junket, fully paid tour of Israel.
Yeah. Look, it hurts particularly when Indigenous folks speak like that, because they should know. Warren Mundine the same. They should know.
I mean, I'm going to challenge you on that, comrade. I get it. Being First Nations, being a person of colour, you would assume that the automatic allegiance is to others suffering. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's politics is the key issue.
Power,
Absolutely. We know Marsha and Warren are not on our side.
They're not on our side. And look, we've got them in the Palestine movement. We've got Palestinians who, are every bit, and I'm going to say to you, they're actually worse than Marsha and Warren. I mean, I'm sure there are Indigenous folk that are worse than Warren.
Yes, of course.
Jacinta in Northern Territory.
Jimper Price, yeah.
Yeah. There are worse, but it hurts, because you just go, what does the power?
Well, the
get
betrayal
you?
is bigger. Yes.
I mean, you got a nicer car. You got a third car. Who needs a third car, really? Yeah. And well, what's your legacy going to be? I said in one of the speeches, Indigenous people are connected to the dirt, and because the dirt owns them, and that's the difference between indigeneity and being a coloniser. When you think you own the dirt.
That does bring us to the end of another Palestine Remembered for this Saturday morning here on Community Radio 3CR. Stay tuned to 3CR for the rest of the weekend. We're back next Saturday from 9:30am with Palestine Remembered. Don't forget tomorrow's rally. I'll play that announcement now.
Stand in solidarity with Palestine this Sunday.
With the most devastating attack ever launched on the people of Gaza, it's time for all of us to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people.
Israel has waged war on the Palestinians for the last 75 years. The Nakba, ethnic cleansing, occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza. Israel has now imposed a total blockade on Gaza and declared war, stopping food, electricity and fuel and launching an all-out attack.
We have to mobilise to show our support for Palestine. 12 p.m, State Library, this Sunday.
Rally to demand freedom and justice for Palestine. No war on Gaza.
Free Palestine Melbourne is a 3CR supporter.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.